7. And McCarron goes down the field, and it's caught and breathes in for the touchdown.
Two things that like that suck. Death, taxes, 85 will always go.
Welcome to New Stripe City, a podcast for die-hard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and today is episode 17, entitled Still Moving. And on today's episode, we'll recap our recent loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we'll also talk about our upcoming matchup against the Denver Broncos. So starting things off, I have a couple of announcements for you guys. The first announcement is that New Stripe City is available on iTunes, but we're also coming to Blog Talk Radio as well as Podcast One, so stay tuned for that. We're working on the finishing touches now, and those will be up as soon as possible. Thank you for your patience. Next, you guys know that you can always find our links to our actual podcast also on our website at newstripecity.blogspot.com, so check that out. We're thinking about launching some articles and some cool things there, so please let us know in the comments if that's something that you'd be interested in, or if you just solely like me to do these videos here. Another announcement is that we delayed our episode that was supposed to come on Saturday until Sunday because we wanted to ensure that we were able to capture that Steelers perspective from our good friend Pedram. So I definitely would like to take my hat off to him and thank him for going ahead and giving us that insight that we needed before the game. So we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming as far as Saturday episodes. If there's ever going to be any kind of delay in the future, I'll definitely leave a tweet on my Twitter at AMBA513, or I'll also leave a message on our Facebook. Make sure you also follow us on there. And if you go onto your Facebook, if you go into the search and you search New Stripe City, you will see our page come up. So make sure you like the page, make sure that you're active on there, make sure that you stay tuned because I do stuff on there from time to time randomly, so keep your eyes out on that. But as far as wrapping up on our announcements, let's get into some quick news briefs. So as we know, Darqueze Dennard returned, so it's going to be interesting to see what he can bring to the table. He didn't look too impressive in his previous performance against the Steelers, but we'll see what happens going forward. And then we didn't get too much of an update on the Tyler Eifert front. I've always initially thought that he'd be out 4 to 6 weeks, so it doesn't look like he's going to be back for week 3 either. I believe I came across an article that stated that Tyler Kroft is actually starting this week, so we'll keep our eyes abreast to that situation. With that being said, we'll go ahead and dive into Bengals Real Talk. And today on Bengals Real Talk, I'll go ahead and recap the game. We'll talk about some of the positives, some of the negatives, some of the missed calls, some of the controversial calls, and I'll also give you my analysis on my thoughts and takeaways from this game. So let's start off with my brief analysis of the game. We'll start off with that first. From watching the game, as a fan, I was extremely proud of our defense in certain aspects. Dre Kirkpatrick is having a heck of a season so far. He really impressed me in this game. He played solid man-to-man coverage. He didn't allow AB to beat him. He made a huge interception play against Sammy Coates. He was very solid in coverage. So hats off to Dre. That's one thing that I was proud of. I also, in a sense, felt that Josh Shaw should have played the majority of the snaps in between him and Dennard. I think that the coaching staff may think that since Dennard was a first-round pick, he may be the better of the two. But without him playing in the preseason, it kind of was a head-scratcher to me why Josh Shaw didn't play the majority of the snaps, as well as the fact that he played so well in Week 1. That was a little bit of a head-scratcher to me, but the defense overall played extremely well. I mean, minus the D'Angelo Williams touchdown at the end, they really did a good job of containing him. Even though he had 94 yards, the guy had so many carries, so they did a very solid job in the run defense department. I also think that with that, there comes some things that I kind of want to point out. So to me, Sean Williams, I was initially thinking that this guy was going to be a guy who could potentially develop into a slightly below elite level safety, and to me it seems like he's still going through that learning curve. So I think we're going to have to be patient with him. But not only did he blow his assignment on D'Angelo Williams, but he's also had a couple of plays in that first game, which Pedram kind of alluded to in our previous episode. So to me, Sean Williams is definitely a guy that has to pick up his play. As far as right now, he's the only guy that I'm seeing. Him and Darqueze Dennard are the only guys that I'm seeing right now with question marks in our secondary. He's stepping into a bigger role this year, replacing Reggie Nelson. So I don't know if it's the fact that he was more comfortable at the strong safety spot over the free safety. I don't know exactly what it is, but so far he's definitely stuck out to me as a guy that hasn't delivered on what I initially thought that he would. So I look to see him get better. Pac-Man Jones was Pac-Man Jones. He limited AB to a average game. I mean, in that a below average game, honestly. So no surprises there. When we look at Marcus Hunt, he's still blowing stuff up. I really liked Marcus Hunt this game. He was held a lot. Not only just him, but a couple of other Bengals players were really held in this game, and it wasn't called. But as far as the defense came to play. Now, moving on to the offensive side, I was a little disappointed in the offense, and I'll tell you why. Pittsburgh, you have to take your hats off to them. They had a great defensive game plan for this game. They took away A.J. Green. They weren't threatened by the run, and they were able to shut down some of our tight ends in the seam. So, in my opinion, I really feel like the offense is struggling right now. I mean, we heard the critics with Jones and Sanu leaving. You know, I really wanted us to prove them wrong, but as of now, this offense is not doing that. And I'm not going to jump on a soapbox or anything. I'm just being cautiously optimistic because, to me, I think this offense can be fixed. There's talent there. I mean, Tyler Boyd, to me, honestly, is the second most dependable weapon, arguably outside of Giovanni Bernard, on this offense. But the thing is, these players, I don't know if it's like Hobbs alluded to earlier with his article, I don't know if it's the fact that they don't have as much chemistry with Dalton, or the fact that there were some injuries here and there, and it may have contributed to that as far as them not being as effective. But it just seems that outside of A.J. Green, it really isn't another dependable option. And I think the problem is that Eifert is sitting out with an injury, so most teams are rolling safety coverage over to AJ and daring our other components of our team to beat us, and that's a problem. You look across the way, and there's another problem is we don't have speed. Now, Cody Core is out with an injury. I think once he gets back, that will help us out a lot. But this is where you need a guy like Mario Alford, who's hurt right now. So, since we don't have any of those guys across from AJ that can really stretch the field, and Eifert is out, I think that's in turn hurting the offense. We saw the offensive line play much better this time. However, it was in the pass protection department, and it wasn't within the rush, within the running lanes. I mean, people will say that this rushing offense has struggled, and I believe that it has, but to me, these guys have to block better, and we have to call more creative plays. I can't believe that I'm actually looking at games where we rarely use Ryan Hewitt. I don't know if Ryan Hewitt is battling that injury that he had earlier or what it is, but for some reason we're deciding to run in a lot of single back formations, and to me it really doesn't make too much of sense. But with no running game, with no dependable target across from AJ Green and no Eifert, I mean, it's hurting this offense, and I'm just going to be real about it. Now, I think that there are several things that can be done in an effort to improve this offense. But to me, my takeaway from that game was that our offense needs to play more consistent and needs to play better. And we have a lot of guys learning new roles, but they need to learn fast because we've got Denver coming in. And this is going to be an even bigger test than it was last week. So as far as the offense, there wasn't too much that I could take away that was a positive. One thing I will say that was a positive part of that game was Andy Dalton's resilience to stay in the game, to keep us in there. I mean, honestly, on that last drive, I thought that we'd go down and definitely score, attempt a 2-point conversion to at least give us a chance to push that game into overtime. To me, I just felt like it was one of those games where the defense clearly outplayed the offense. So we can't have games like that. We have to have games where our offense and our defense are both playing balanced. So outside of that, I will also say that another bright sign was Tyler Boyd. I mean, we knew that Tyler Boyd was going to be a consistent guy, but he really stepped it up. I also think that Alex Erickson making that third down catch, that was huge as well. I think that Ken Zampese needs to figure out exactly what it is that he wants to do. He needs to give these guys different looks. He needs to be able to utilize his players to their potential. And I mean, this was something that we heard a lot about with Hugh leaving. I definitely have respect for Hugh Jackson. He definitely made some intriguing play calls. He definitely pushed this offense to some of its limits, but I also think that a lot of that talent was there. So I think Zamp can do the same. I still have faith in Zamp, but he has to mix it up a little. You know, let's get some packages where we have Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard on the field at the same time. Let's get some draw plays going. Let's get some screens going. Wide receiver screens. I mean, I really don't remember us even calling a wide receiver screen the entire game. So to me, there has to be an initiative for Zamp to get other guys involved. Guys like Alex Erickson. We saw James Wright for a handful of plays, but we have to get some better play calls, in my opinion, and some better formations out there on the field. We need to see more Ryan Hewitt lining up at fullback as a lead blocker. We need to see Jeremy Hill in there. We need to throw some offense, or we need to throw some defenses off, honestly. Now, CJ Uzomah. I was a big CJ Uzomah fan initially, but it's clear that he isn't as dependable as we need him to be. He made some plays here and there. He made the play, which, in my opinion, could have possibly have been a touchdown. Who knows? But it seemed like he dropped more balls than he caught this past Sunday, and I think that Tyler Kroft easily showed that he's the more dependable of the two, and I feel like Kroft made more clutch plays. So I want to see what Uzomah can do, but it's definitely clear that he's not on the same dependability level as Tyler Kroft. If we look at anyone else over there in the receiver department or in the offensive department, it seems like we're really thin. We really are missing Eifert. So getting AJ Green involved was very difficult, and I don't understand why we didn't try to attempt to run some more unique plays to him, or some more unique plays in general. But it just seemed that outside of Tyler Boyd, Giovanni Bernard, and Andy Dalton, we just really didn't have anything there. And the fact that Andy hurt his ankle kind of messed things up initially with his timing. I mean, there were some throws that Andy could have made better, but to me, it just all starts at the top. So with that offensive performance, I like that they showed the grit and the determination to come back from behind, but this isn't going to be a year where we can hang our hats on that. Marvin Jones is gone, Mohamed Sanu is gone, so we don't have those guys that can make those plays to get us down the offense as fast as we used to. We're going to have some growing pains, so that was definitely clear. As far as the officiating, I'm not going to harp too much on the officiating. We all know what happened. We all know that we had one of the worst officiating teams out there this past week. But I mean, some of the play calls were ridiculous. I just really don't understand how Tyler Boyd's knee was not down. Above all else, we saw the clear holding calls, and I mean, it was clear as day that his knee was down. I mean, I just don't understand how you're able to decide a game on something like that. And I'm not saying that we would have won the game, but I mean, come on, man. We had some good momentum going to the point where we could have pushed overtime, but it was ruined by a call from the referees that doesn't even make sense. And the NFL in general, the rules just don't make sense to me, because honestly, when that tight end for the Steelers, it wasn't Jesse James. Jesse James definitely proved me wrong. But the other tight end, I believe his name was Grimble or something like that. I don't understand how that was a catch. And I mean, I understand the whole breaking of the plane logic, but that still doesn't make sense to me, because you can catch a football in the end zone, and if the ground causes you to not have control of the ball, it's not a catch. But you mean to tell me if you do the same thing diving towards the touchdown, it is? That just doesn't make sense. I mean, there seems like there's some kind of loophole there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, it just doesn't make sense from a common sense perspective. So if I'm 1 foot in the end zone and I catch the ball like right behind the touchdown marker, and the ball hits the ground, it's not a catch.
Bruh.
But you can do that. And I mean, I've even seen plays like that aren't even near the end zone where the receivers do that. I think there was a play with T.Y. Hilton where he did that, and they called it an incomplete. So how is that a touchdown? But anyway, other things, I mean, we can talk about the lack of calls on both sides. At the end of the day, in my opinion, they're going to have the home cooking, but some of those play calls were ridiculous. I mean, there's a such thing as home cooking, and then there's a such thing as what's going on here, and that was a what's going on here kind of game. But I wasn't surprised, because I knew that heading into this game we were going to have one of the worst officiating teams, so I knew that they were going to miss a ton of calls. But over all of them, I don't understand the Tyler Boyd one. I mean, I can live with the holdings and all of that, but the Tyler Boyd play just really didn't sit well with me. But other than that, I will also say that the coaching staff let me down a little bit. I know that the Bengals have our own department that is in charge of challenges. I don't know where they were in that game. Like I stated earlier, the Uzoma play, I mean, at first, initially, I didn't see that the guy got his knee down, but how do you not challenge that? I mean, I understand that you want to keep your timeouts, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's a scoring play, so that's something that you definitely have to take a look at least, especially when we were 0 for 3 in the red zone. That just didn't really make too much sense to me. And there were some other plays that I felt like could have been challenged, but that's neither here nor there. Now, as far as our performance against the Steelers, I think that we played overall pretty good to go into Heinz Field, play like that, go on the road right after a game against New York, and it just feels like a missed opportunity to me. I know that we still have the second matchup left, but it just felt like a little bit of an opportunity that we could have taken advantage of, but we weren't able to. But other than that, man, I mean, I hate to say it, but I have to give my hats off to the Steelers. I mean, they had a good game plan. They came out and did what they needed to do. We shut down AB. We tried to contain D'Angelo Williams, and they still found a way to win. Jesse James, I guess I must have jinxed us before the game with the Jesse James thing. So, it is what it is, but we'll definitely try to get things back together, and we'll see where it heads, where things will head. But I really just want to see what the offense can really do. The offense is going to have to step it up and mature. Zampese, I'm going to have to see what you can do with this offense. I know that you're fully capable of ensuring that this offense is effective, but we have to see what's going on. we got Denver coming in, and that's a perfect segue to this next one. And Denver's going to be a big test. I mean, a lot of people didn't think that they were going to be a good team after they lost Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler. Well, newsflash, Peyton Manning was trash last year, and they still made it to the Super Bowl. So it doesn't matter if I suit up at quarterback for the Denver Broncos. That defense is so good that they're going to be in every game. Now, I feel like in this game, we're going to get our run defense put to the test. We had a very solid performance, and I'll still say that even though it was 94 yards, it was a lot of carries, and I still think it was a solid performance against D'Angelo Williams. We're going to have to do that same kind of thing to C.J. Anderson because he's off to a very hot start, and that's one of the things that the Denver Broncos tend to do. They like to run the ball. They like to take some shots with Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, but for the most part, that Kubiak offense revolves around the running game and the zone running. So we have to make sure that we're able to effectively stop the run and force their quarterback to beat us. So we'll see how that goes coming up. I would like to see what our offense can do. I'm very confident on our defense. I think Drake Kirkpatrick is playing very good football right now. I think that our defensive line can take advantage of some of the injuries on the offensive line. Will definitely be matched up with their defensive line and pass rush versus ours. So I look to see what Dunlap can do. I'm not really seeing too much from Will Clark so far. I don't know if you guys have seen him make any plays, but it seems like Marcus Hunt is just definitely taking this game to the next level. So these guys will be key in this next game. Pat Sims had a pretty solid game, especially against the run. Pico had a pretty solid game as well. Carlos Dansby is going to be key in this game. They also have a tight end, Virgil Green, who's also going to be out. I know Demaryius Thomas is battling a little bit of a hip injury, but in my honest opinion, just because I had Demaryius Thomas last year, to me, Demaryius Thomas may garner the most spotlight and attention, but the guy to really watch between those two is Emmanuel Sanders. That's the guy that really scares me for the Broncos. He's very sneakily pretty good. He's a very good receiver, so I want to see that matchup between him and Dre. I think that's going to be a key matchup for the game. I expect to see Dre guard him. We'll see how they roll with things, but that's going to be another key matchup. We have to limit that pass rush. I mean, Andy Dalton, it's no secret he had an injury to his ankle. We have to protect him, okay? We have to protect him. And another way of us protecting him is being able to effectively run the ball. These guys won't be able to keep doing what they're doing with bringing pressure and playing zone if we can try to run through these guys. So that's something that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to get AJ Green the ball. We're going to have to get Tyler Eifert the ball, and this is going to be hard. We're going to have to get LaFell the ball too, and it's going to be hard because we're facing the best secondary in football. Okay, you've got Bradley Roby. You've also got Chris Harris. You've also got Aqib Talib, who's a guy that can pick six anytime. AJ Green played very well against him last year, but you have to remember we did have Marvin Jones on the other side, and we also had Tyler Eifert. So we'll see how they play us this time, but I'm pretty sure that they're definitely going to be keying in on AJ Green. So this offense has to step it up. The running game also has to step it up, okay? So this isn't a must-win game by any stretch, but this is a prove-it game for the Bengals and to prove to themselves that they can hang in this league. The AFC is getting off to a fast start. We've got Pittsburgh at 2-0. We've got the Baltimore Ravens at 2-0. We also have the Patriots at 2-0, who might drop this game simply because Jimmy Garoppolo more than likely isn't going to play on a short week. He had an AC shoulder sprain. And, I mean, next week Brady comes back. So, man, we have to... the Broncos are 2-0. We have to jump on this opportunity. We can't lose any of these games. These games are valuable, and we need to ensure that we can come in here. Well, not come in here. Well, when they come into our house, we need to be able to protect our house, and I believe that we will. So, if I had to do a prediction, I'm going to go with Bengals 20, Broncos 17. I think that this is going to be a game where the Bengals will show their grit and determination and come out with a victory. I think I'm just being cautiously optimistic, but I think that they can do it. I really truly think that they can do it. I think this team's biggest downfall is that they need to believe in themselves. And I'll just touch on another thing. I mean, after I believe it was right before the Bengals scored their first touchdown and were able to get the ball back, I saw a lot of people on my timeline giving up, talking about there's the dagger ball game. I don't understand that. Okay, you're in a game where you're within 2 touchdowns, you have the ball, 7 minutes left. I mean, it's not over. We can't give up on this team. I mean, this team is too good for people to be calling ball game with 7 or 8 minutes left in the actual game. Did you not watch the Seahawks game last year? It just really doesn't sit well with me. I mean, I'm gonna cheer on my team until the clock reads 3-0. So we have to believe in our own team, man. I just really can't. I'm not telling people how they should, be fans, but I mean, come on, we got to be better than that. We got to be better than some of these other fans that are out there. I mean, come on, honestly, like, stick with your team, man. Stick with your team. But anyways, I look to see what we can do in the jungle, and I look forward to a huge victory, man. I really have faith in this team. I really want to see them turn it around, and I think that we can, okay? I just don't want to be overly, optimistic. I just want to be cautiously optimistic. So that's the theme of this week. Get to work, do your job, and hopefully we can come out of here with this victory. I also want to see if we can get Cody Core, because if we can get him back, that could potentially be a huge lift for us. So we've got this, and then we've got the Miami game on a short week. So we'll see how things go. But as you know, it's Who Day all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.